Okay, here we are, another week, another preview. Most importantly, this week we have a new microphone. So just a thank you to everyone. Heard your feedback and have upgraded this week. So from now on, we should be experiencing much better sound quality. But that's not why you're here. We're here for a bit of an update, a bit of a preview onto this week's specialist tournaments and looking at the players that could potentially fill a lineup in that under 40 point last 15 slot. What is super exciting this week is with the addition of the extra leagues that have come online this weekend, we've seen a further increase in prizes. And what really stands out to me is the fact that there are 5-star rares to be won. The value that this particular tournament, when we look at Specialist Limited, is unbelievable, and it's only going to get, it's only got better this week. So, obviously we have to factor in there will be increased competition. There will be some very good lineups out this weekend, but the opportunity to win relative to the cost of building a team for this tournament continues to be probably the best on the platform, if you ask me. So without any further ado, we will jump into the preview, starting with the goalkeeper. And this week we're looking at Vitesse. It's Jerome Howen. Schubert and Howen have sort of been sharing the role of number one at Vitesse for the last season, but with Schubert injured at this moment in time, Howen's going to get the start this weekend, and playing Excelsior, a newly promoted side, it's a really, really good opportunity for him, and his price at the moment looks pretty good. What we normally see is a price pump leading into these tournaments. I do wonder if, because people that may have bought him last week to enter got a little bit burned with a frankly terrible score at Feyenoord, against Feyenoord. The thing is, he's not playing Feyenoord this weekend. He's ultimately in here because of a bunch of matches against, we've got a couple here against AZ, we've got one against Feyenoord. There's a lot of tough fixtures that have dragged down his average score to make him qualify. He's not playing any of those teams this weekend. And if you look at the next bunch of fixtures that Howen has got, Excelsior, Herenveen, Valvik, Groningen, Utrecht, Volendam, it's an absolutely incredible run of fixtures. And he's sat at an L15 of 34 at the moment. So feasibly, as long as he can retain the spot, and it depends on how long Schubert stays injured for, this is a player that you could run in the next couple of weeks in frankly incredible fixtures, and that is personally what I intend to do. I'm going to grab a Howen, I'm going to play him in this weekend, I'm going to play him next weekend, because this run of fixtures is genuinely incredible. Next up, we move on to the defenders. We've got Bosko Sutalo, who's now playing at Zagreb. So he is a player that has moved to Zagreb over the summer, and ultimately he's in the mix here because of his scores at his last club. So he was in Serie A previously at Hellas Verona, wasn't a starter, bunch of sub appearances, but as you can see, since he's come across to Zagreb, he's put up a 24-point AA and then a 12-point AA. It's two pretty solid scores for a player that you can fit in that under 40 slot. It's one of the more difficult fixtures for Dynamo Zagreb in the league, but at home, you'd argue that this is an opportunity for Sutalo to gather more defensive AA, and actually could be a pretty solid fixture for him. So I think going 50 plus is entirely reasonable expectation for him this weekend, and it's because it's an important fixture. I think it's a minimised chance of Zagreb rotating for this one. Another one is another player who has moved this summer is Gonçalo Esteves. So he is a Sporting Club Portugal Academy graduate. He has gone on loan to Estoril Praia, and last week put up a pretty decent score. Put up a 50 in playing as right back and against Famalicão. This weekend they're playing Gomes, who again are not a club that really score many. The other benefit of Esteves is, he's still an under 23. He's one of those players that you could run in the specialist tournament for a couple of weeks, then potentially put him in underdog, and then he could feasibly with the matrix changes become someone that would be considered in your under 23 squad as well. So he's quite an exciting player, and one of these ones that fit in the camp of you catch them at the right time, and you're not just buying in and selling out just specifically so you can enter a specialist team. So that's ultimately the reason I quite like him. Next up is a player who hasn't moved clubs but has a wonderful fixture this weekend at Zulta, and that is Genk's Gerardo Ortega. So he is, ultimately one of the many players that Genk had last year that just didn't do well as part of the constant rotation under Bernd Stork. But Stork's gone now, and in the 2 games that we've had as Wouter Warneken, he started both. He's put up 55 and 52. So some pretty solid scores here. And again, he's one of these players that has utility into the future, and has a wonderful fixture this weekend. All we got to hope is that Genk do remember how to defend and keep a clean sheet, and you could see a nice little boost on that point score as well. Rolling through into the midfielders, it's Federico Benedeschi. So he moved to Toronto in the States. They've got a home fixture this weekend against Portland Timbers, who tend not to travel well. And, Benedeschi, he's settled in pretty quickly. If you look at this, he's not played 3 full matches yet, but he's already grabbed 3 decisives, which suggests he could be someone that could do pretty well at MLS level. He is playing as a striker. He does have a midfielder card, but still, he's the kind of player that can get you decisives. And I think this weekend against a Timbers side that just do not travel well, I'd back him to get add another decisive to his collection that he's gathered so far while playing in the MLS. Another player who has started the season incredibly well is Dani Olmo of RB Leipzig. What's really interesting about Olmo is he had a lot of competition for his space last season. So you've got at Leipzig, you've obviously got Nkuku, who had an amazing year last year. You've also got Dominik Szoboszlai. Olmo, honestly, last season was really hit and miss, but he's really, really jumped onto many managers' radar with an 87 pointer last week, including 27 AA, playing in a central attacking midfielder role against Stuttgart. So yeah, this is one that he's been really, really hit and miss. He had some injury problems, really sort of struggled to hit the form that he showed in earlier stages of his career last season. But if the first game is anything to go by, he could be a pretty exciting option this season. Cologne this weekend isn't one of the easiest fixtures, but Leipzig at home, you certainly wouldn't bet against them. He's then got Union Berlin, Wolfsburg, Frankfurt, Dortmund. So it's a sort of mixed run of fixtures, but I think he could offer a lot of utility in the specialist and also beyond. There's definitely a theme this week of players that have benefited from transfers, and Karol Eiting is another. So he was at Genk where his cards were minted. He then went to Huddersfield and just didn't really settle last season. He's now gone to FC Volendam, who are the newly promoted club in the Eredivisie. What did he do? Well, he joined last week and went straight into the Volendam team, and he put up a 46-point score in an away game against Groningen. Groningen actually looked really sharp last match, so it was a pretty tough opening fixture for him, particularly when he's not familiarised with his new teammates. But the signs are there that he's going to be a regular starter. And ultimately that's what you need in these slots. You don't really want someone that's a risk. That will completely kill your team. And to be able to put a player in that you can rely on for getting you sort of minimum 50 points, I think is really puts you in a really good position for the specialist tournament. So yeah, Eiting jumps into my list as well. Another one, and this is not a transfer, but someone who, much like Dani Olmo, has struggled for form at the end of last season, but this season started pretty well. So this is Mitchell van Bergen, who is at Reims in France. He moved over from the Netherlands. He was at Herenveen before. He's probably very well known to people that play FIFA because he seemed to have a lot of inform cards a couple of seasons ago when he was in Holland. But he put up a really, really impressive AA score last week in an away defeat to Marseille. That really, really caught my eye because that's a very, very good AA for a forward, particularly in Champion Europe, and a player that is also under 23. So, that if you can do that against Marseille, Clermont at home this weekend, that's really, really exciting. I'd be very, very interested to see what Van Bergen can do this weekend because, that score last week really, really stood out and really caught my attention. So, if he's managed to, strengthen himself up in the off-season, coming into this season in form, Reims have obviously sold Hugo Ikain to Paris Saint-Germain. So there is a real opportunity for Van Bergen to lock in a starting spot here. And, if he can put up that sort of AA and grab a decisive against Clermont this weekend, he could be an absolute sleeper pick for this tournament. And back again, so it's basically a rotating theme this week. Players that have either had a decent transfer or players that have benefited from a change of position or found some form coming into this season. Andy Sakiri, he had some cards minted from his time at Augsburg, but he's actually a player who has gone on loan to FC Basel from Brighton. And again, like Eiting, he just went straight into the team last week. Against young boys, top of the league clash, went in, put up a respectable AA score for a forward of 5.5. But it just shows the importance of him to the team. He's a player that in his previous time in the Swiss Super League completely and utterly ripped up. So the fact that he's playing Lugano at home this weekend really, really stands out. And he's a really, in my opinion, a really, really exciting pick. If you're looking for differentials, which will become more and more important as the competitiveness of the specialist increases, looking at these players that are maybe out of mint, got a transfer, Kasim Adams at Basel as well was another. They offer that real differential pick because if they hit, that there's not that many other managers that are also going to have that player. I think this is one thing to consider as this tournament gets more and more competitive. And if it will do, with this many star rares on it, there will be more and more people that are drawn to the specialist tournament. Last but not least is another player who has benefited from a transfer, someone at the end of their career, but still doing really well, and that is Burak Yilmaz. Yilmaz, to be fair, was still very good last season, even at 36 years of age in League One. He has now moved to Holland, and he's playing for Fortuna. Came off the bench, 24 minutes against Ajax, bagged himself a goal. If that doesn't put him on your radar, I don't know what does. He would be absolutely elite if we had another over 32 specialist, but for now, he's in the actual specialist. FC Twente. The reason I'm picking against Twente, which even though on paper is a pretty tough fixture, is he showed his capabilities scoring against Ajax. Twente have also been involved in a midweek fixture, so they are going to have a consideration around rotation ahead of potentially the next qualifying round that will happen next week. So there's a real good chance that they won't go full strength this weekend, and I think that gives a great opportunity for Yilmaz to score. And that's it. That brings us to the end of our preview this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I will see you next week.